Hi Soenke. We are in a historic moment, I think. COP26 has just ended now, and you're still there. So let us know what's happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are one day over hours, so to say. This morning, the COP presidency launched new text on the website. Everyone was reading it, and there was like an informal plenary. It was not quite clear if the parties would accept the text. So it was actually put out, I think, 10 o'clock first time, but then it was postponed to 12. I think it happened at 4. And then it was quite clear that most countries are actually accepting it, but there was still like a few problems. I can go into the details of all the decisions later on, but there was a question around the language around coal decommissioning, as well as phasing out fossil fuel subsidies, and especially China and India and also South Africa, they weren't happy with that. But I think the other countries, they more or less accepted it. And so there was a little bit of a showdown at the end. And there was like some last minute change. But then afterwards, the COP presidency was able to gabble it through.
That's great. Well, more or less great. Maybe you can you go a little bit more in detail into the decision so our audience can know a little bit more about it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we have now a Glasgow Climate Pact. This is really the cover decision which puts out all the issues, and it's about sending a signal, and all the I would say aspirations of the COP, you will find them in the cover decision, but of course, or not of course, but also not all was met. So for example, as I said, one is the signal around mitigation. We know that emissions have to actually decrease in the next 10 years. So there was quite a focus on that. There was a question on whether especially the big countries are invited to submit new climate plans and how strong the language is. So that is in. Then one question is around the signal on decommissioning fossil fuels and decommissioning coal, especially, as well as fossil fuel subsidies. And then also the question around finance. So how to come to a new finance goal, what kind of process to do, whether this will be a political process or a more technical process. And I think there was quite a consensus now emerging, and we have now a process for a new climate finance goal in 2025. Another question was that around adaptation finance. So now there's a commitment to double adaptation finance. I think this is also one of the shining outcomes of the summit. Another area is definitely that of loss and damage. So this was really also the cry of small island states and developing countries and also society. There was a last edition last night to ask for a loss damage financing facility, and that didn't enjoy consensus, especially by the developed countries, and there was like a lot of back and forth also in today's plenary. But what we have in terms of loss and damage is that there's a Santiago network. It's a technical capacity building facility, and it will also be funded. I think this is usually you only have the decisions to do something, but not the commitment to fund. And also Germany, for example, directly backed it up with a financial commitment. So that is, I think, quite special, and also more than what we've had previously. And then maybe, I mean, there are many decisions, but maybe one also interesting for us is that around an adaptation goal. So the Paris Agreement sets a global goal on adaptation, but the question is, what does this mean, and how to track that in reality? And there was always a back and forth in the process. There were like some technical workshops, but now there's like a really political high-level work program. That will take 2 years, and that will then also inform the global stocktake, so the global assessment in 2023. And this will also be one of the major outcomes here from Glasgow in terms of the technical decisions.
Good. And so what can we expect for the future? Are we hopeful?
I mean, it is a little bit always with this process. It's consensus driven, and it was also quite clear in the final plenary, especially the vulnerable countries saying, okay, this is what we can get at this stage, and that's why we also go with it. But it's not enough. It's not enough to actually ensure 1.5 degree temperature or less than 1.5 degree temperature increase, and also not on, for example, adaptation and all the other aspects. So the process really delivers maybe the floor, and we have to accept that. But I think putting everything together where we were maybe half a year ago, and also putting together the different initiatives that were announced in the first week, the fact that climate is now again squarely on the agenda. I mean, you are the comms person, you can see how much traction it had in the last 2 weeks, and also the stakeholder action. I think that together this was a major step, but at the same time a lot needs to be done, that's quite clear, and so also many processes are geared towards the next COP27, which will be in Egypt and which will be an African COP, so this is also quite clear that this is only the start, and it's not the end.